Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today our topic is overcoming intimidation.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam. I'm glad you joined me today for overcoming intimidation. One of the biggest reasons investors get intimidated is they take things personally. Now, I get it. We're all human. We're all personal. We all have different ways that we deal with interactions with people. But you have to remember that if you take things personally in this business, you will get offended on a regular basis. So if you're just starting out, you're going to have to understand that when you do get offended, you can't just say, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to quit. You just can't take things personally. And that's why I want to talk about ways to remove anxiety and apprehension. Because if you remember that this is a business, and even if you're investing for a portfolio and not just your personal investing stake, and you treat it like a business and keep it as a separate entity, then it's easier to look at the whole spectrum and not take things personally. And that would be, I guess the second point or the second thing that I would recommend as we're talking today in this podcast. If we remember that it's a business, number one, and number two, we remember to not take things personally, it's going to get us a long way down the road with this. One of the things that you can do to help avoid, the personal onslaught or feeling like people are attacking you personally when they don't answer your phone call or they hang up on you or they tell you that you're just like all the other people that have been bugging them and that you're a bottom feeder, whatever it is. I mean, you hear it all when you're doing real estate investing, is to use low-risk methods that we teach to reduce risks. So if you can do things that reduce risks, it'll help take some of that anxiety away from you. And so if you're not looking at things personally and you're using low-risk methods or low-risk means of investing in real estate, it'll help to reduce that anxiety. And it will help you lower your intimidation. Because we get intimidated about doing something, it freezes us, and we don't want to freeze. So the thing to do is to keep moving forward, and you have to get rid of intimidation to do that. Another way to do that is to join a coaching program if you need help dealing with intimidation, because intimidation is real. And when you take things personal, it's easier to get intimidated. When you don't look at it as just a business, it's easier to get intimidated. And a lot of people go, well, I don't want to join a coaching program because then people will think I don't know what I'm doing. It'll show that a weakness, and I don't need help, and I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing. But the reality is all of the top coaches that I know, the guys who are crushing it, whether they're making $10,000 a month, whether they're making $100,000 a month, whether they're making $1 million a month, one of the things that they have in common is they have coaches. And so I would encourage you to join a coaching program, especially if you're facing intimidation and want to have somebody to help you deal and work through that. One of the coaches on our program certainly could help to answer those questions. And I've been told that I don't promote it enough, but we do coach real estate investors. And one of the things that we help you do is we help you get through the intimidation factor by providing accountability and holding you accountable. When we can hold people accountable, or when you hire somebody to hold you accountable, then you can't just go, well, I was offended, I was intimidated, I didn't make those phone calls because I didn't want to hear no, I didn't want them to tell me that even though they inquired about selling a house to me, they really didn't want to. A coach will help keep you accountable and get you moving forward. So let's look at some of the common fears and get an understanding about the common fears that lead to this intimidation and your ability to just freeze and not take action. Okay, so one of the things that can be intimidating for people is the fear of losing earnest money. I mean, it's real. I mean, you're putting up earnest money, and it just depends on the transaction, whether it's $100 or it's $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000. You're putting up earnest money, and that money says, "Hey, I'm earnest about purchasing your property," and that money would be refundable under certain circumstances. But the intention, obviously, is to go to the end of the transaction where you won't lose it. But there's an intimidation when people go, "Well, why do I have to put up, $3,000 or $5,000? Well, here's the reason why. To buy this transaction, we need to do this. Now, obviously, we teach to try to put up as little earnest money as possible. As part of our, our no money down program, is put up as little earnest money as a seller will accept. But we want to put up as much money as we need to buy a house. And then what happens if you have to close before you can sell? So we get this from wholesale investors, and they're intimidated because they don't know that they can actually sell a house prior to having to close, and maybe they don't have the money, they don't have the network of private money yet, they haven't talked to hard money lenders, and so it's another intimidating factor. We get this one too. What if my investor loan gets turned down? Right? So you've got the fear of losing earnest money. You've got the intimidation of not being able to close before you sell if you're doing wholesale. What if you do apply for an investor loan and it gets turned down? Well, that brings intimidation. I don't want to even move forward with this if I have the thought that something may go wrong in the transaction. And I've had people do that. They want to get every I dotted, every T crossed. But in this industry, sometimes speed is what leads to the opportunities and leads to profitability. So sometimes you got to be quick. And again, you got to treat this like a business. You can't worry out all of the potential problems. I mean, could you imagine if Walmart, before he ever started Walmart, tried to figure out all his problems that he would face before he became the largest employer in the world? I mean, he would have never taken action because he would have never figured out it. It's an impossible problem to solve, and that's what happens with a lot of investors. They try to solve this impossible problem instead of taking action. You can start at your level. That's the big thing. That'll help with dealing with some intimidation. Just because you watch some guy on HGTV or you watch some YouTube video, you don't have to start where they are. One big mistake that new real estate investors make is they try to do complicated deals without the skills needed to do that, or without hiring a coach. If you want to break down the intimidation on this, do something that's in your wheelhouse, something you have knowledge or experience. And if you don't have either of those, again, get in a coaching program. And I hear this from people, well, I was going to join the coaching program, but it was so much money. But what you don't take into account is, was it a lot of money in comparison to the amount of money you can make on just your first deal? I mean, I've had people on this show talk about the amount of money and the profits that they've made from doing their transactions. I remember when I first took my first wholesale real estate course, and I paid what in today's money would be about $6,500 for this course. And the course was horrible. It came with a few sheets of paper. It came with about 6 cassette tapes. And the cassette tapes weren't that long. They were about 20 to 30 minutes long. So it was let's just say it was 3 hours of teaching, had a few sheets of paper, and explained kind of the way the course worked. And I listened to it a couple of times, and I really thought, this is stupid. I'm never going to use this. This doesn't make any sense. I really am not any farther ahead than I was before. And then not long after that, an opportunity came up. And had I not taken that course, I wouldn't have noticed it. It would have just seemed like any other deal. I would have called an investor and just said, hey, look, there's this opportunity. Let me represent you as the real estate agent on this thing. And I would have made, probably at that time, because of the price of the house, I probably would have made about $1,000 real estate commission on the project. But because I had taken this wholesale course and I had spent $6,500 in today's money on that course, I saw something that I couldn't see before. And without using, I won't say any of my own money, but I think I was in this whole transaction about $500. When I wholesaled this thing to the same investor that I would have called to see if he would like to have purchased this thing, I made, after paying for the course, $10,000 in profit. Okay, so I know real estate investing coaches, if they're good, if they know what they're doing, if they've got experience, if they've got the knowledge and expertise, they can seem expensive. But what you have to look is, what is the value in this when I get to where I want to be? Is that value 10,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? You know, and so when you look at it, you got to start going, oh, well, really, in the overall scheme of things, it's not that bad. I mean, you go to buy a house just to live in, and your closing costs on it can easily be $10,000, and you're getting a place to live. But what if you invested $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 in yourself to have a coach to help you get through your first few real estate transactions for that same $10,000, and you made $10,000, $50,000, or $100,000? Because they have the knowledge, skills, and experience. And that's why it's so important to find a real estate coach or program. That's like a Whitwam Wealth Academy. We have the knowledge and experience, and we have the systems in order to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. The other option is to find other people with knowledge or skills or experience. And again, for me, I think it's a coach. I know that I've read many books from top real estate producers, and they all say the same thing. They all have a real estate investing coach. So if you try to do a complicated transaction without a system, then you can risk bumps, bruises, and maybe some broken bones, metaphorically, in the process. And we want to eliminate that by being able to deal with the intimidation by relying on the expertise of somebody who has done it over and over and over again successfully. The next thing I want to talk about, because this can be very intimidating, is just risk. When possible, we just work on trying to minimize our risk as investors, minimize our exposures. We do that, through a contract. And if you're working with a coach, or you're in a good real estate coaching program, like our real estate coaching programs actually have contracts that give you the language that you need in order to protect yourself and minimize your risk. The other thing you can do to minimize risk is you can do deals with other people, joint venture. And we do that with our students all the time. We'll joint venture in a project. We'll take on the risk. They'll gain the experience through the process, and it becomes a win-win. So that's why I say coaching is another way to destroy this intimidation. And you can get coaching by doing joint ventures if you use somebody who's experienced, trustworthy. And a lot of times I recommend doing joint ventures with people who are, public figures in these programs, because they have a reputation to uphold, like we do at Whitwam Wealth Academy. We don't want to, be damaging our reputation over trying to make, $5,000 or $10,000. That would be silly in the scheme of and scope of what we do. The other thing you can do is you can get some e-coaching and training from quality, programs. I mean, we have some e-learning programs. Our basic investor, our beginning investor coaching program course, and then we have how to buy money with no money down, unlocking real estate riches, buying homes with low or no down payment. It's an e-coaching training program to help you get you from where you are to where you want to be, and help to build wealth through real estate. The other thing you can do that's a little less expensive, and sometimes this is a good low-cost place for people to start to help them with this intimidation factor that they're doing, is get into a group coaching program. They're a little bit lower cost. We have group coaching programs available. They're much lower cost, and then you can hear what other students have been through and what they're going through and how they're working through the program. So that can help sometimes with the encouragement and getting encouraging and breaking the intimidation. Though I think one-to-one coaching is by far the best, it is the most expensive. Group coaching can be a good substitute from that. Learn from the mistakes of the coaches. Learn from other people's mistakes. That's my advice. Learn from other people's mistakes. Don't make them yourself. They've already made them, so learn from it. But you have to take action. But you want to learn from the mistakes that you make and move forward. One of my favorite quotes of all times, it is, you learn nothing new from the second kick from a horse. So once you learn from one of your mistakes, that means you're not going to make it again. You move on. If you're in a habit of making mistakes over and over and over again, you are definitely a candidate for some type of coaching program, because you need somebody to hold you accountable so you don't keep making the same mistakes. But just realize we all do make mistakes. Some of the best real estate investors there are out there, some of the top guys. One of my top real estate investing coaches in a real estate downturn lost millions and millions of dollars. And I'm talking big time money because he made a mistake. But he learned from that mistake and has turned it into $1 million a month business for himself. I was just in a meeting with one of my other top coaches, and they lost a couple $1 million in the downturn in our current economy, in this in this Bidenomics economy. Lost a couple $1 million just because of the way the government has handled the economy and what it's turned things to. And so I know that there's you learn from that and you go, oh, in this economy we can't do that. We have to do different things. But don't stop because you mess up. You need to overcome, learn from what's happened, and move on, and develop that positive mindset. This is the reason why I post a weekly mindset program. The reason that I personally coach people on mindset. The condition of your mind determines your destination in life. Watch how you think. Your life is shaped by your thought. Nothing destroys intimidation better than taking action. Continual forward movement destroys intimidation. Small advances make big gains. Now, we're out of time for today, so we're going to have to leave it there. You've been listening to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, and I want to thank you for enjoying today's episode and taking time to listen to this. And if you found this episode about overcoming intimidation helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcast, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me next time on the episode of Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.